It was 2:30 in the morning, and I had to go to the bathroom. Not now, I'm telling you the story. I was on the island of Pengchao in Hong Kong, and it was my first night at a brand new Airbnb, so I didn't even know where the light switch was. Finally fumbled around, hit the light switch on, and in the bathroom, a couple of cockroaches go scattering across the floor. Now, there are two things you should know. Number one, Hong Kong is made for tiny Cantonese people. Number two, I'm not Cantonese. And judging by your laughter, correct, I might not be tiny as well. The reason why this is important is because as I sat down in the tiny Cantonese toilet, my elbow hit the pipe that goes up to the water tank. And I knocked off about a half dozen other huge cockroaches. And they landed on my shoulders and in my hair. I know, I was there. And the only thing worse than having a cockroach land in your hair is having a cockroach land in your hair when your pants are around your ankles. That's really a special kind of vulnerability. So as these cockroaches are, let's call it disrespecting my personal space, I'm actually happy. And I'm happy because I'm really uncomfortable right at that moment. And I'd realized by then that I'm really happy when things aren't perfect. I'm happy being uncomfortable because when everything in life is going great, those are kind of the moments I don't really remember too well. You know, when things are going along perfectly fine, there's really nothing to kind of engage you, no problems to solve. You kind of don't feel alive. I think that when everything is going perfect, we kind of go through life sleep living. I think when we go through, we kind of go through life sleep living. Copyright 2016, all rights reserved. I haven't always been broken. It actually started when my job shifted from Shanghai to Hong Kong, and I started commuting back and forth each week. And I decided that when I was in Hong Kong, I would just stay at Airbnbs, and I would try and stay in a different Airbnb in a totally different neighborhood each time. And I would do this for a year. I would call the project Airbnb. The project did not go as planned. It actually lasted about 3 years, and I stayed in 136 different Airbnbs just in Hong Kong. And while doing so, I got incredible, really, really good at being uncomfortable, which you should know is not a marketable skill, apparently. But while I gained this expertise at being uncomfortable, I realized that there's probably three kind of phases of discomfort that you go through. The first one is accidental discomfort. And that's when you just, you happen to find yourself in a really uncomfortable place and you didn't see it coming. Like stay number 4, which was in Wan Chai. Stay number 4 looked pretty nice in pictures. But when you got there, maybe it was a little bit different than that. It was so small that if you stood in the middle and put your arms out, you could touch the opposing walls. There were bugs running along the floorboards. There was one working light. And when you laid your head down at night, on the wall right next to you were blood stains. And I just want to point out, this wasn't my blood. Like if it was my blood, that'd be kind of cool, leave your mark and all. This was stranger blood, and stranger blood is disgusting. And I could have totally avoided that by just reading the reviews. If I would have read the reviews, I would have seen that my host, Wendy, sometimes guests will leave comments that are, a little bit critical. And instead of apologizing or giving some loose lip service to saying we're trying to improve things, she would attack them. If someone said, I like the location, the place was a little bit messy, she would say you were a villain. You're a wolf. You're a wolf at heart, but innocent in appearance. And the whole thing could have been avoided if I just read the reviews. So I vowed from then on, right back at stay number 4, that before I ever booked, I would never, ever read the reviews because I had slipped into phase 2 of being uncomfortable, and that is acceptable discomfort. This is the stage you get to when you kind of get okay, when you get comfortable with being uncomfortable. When you realize that being uncomfortable is actually not the worst thing in the world. In fact, when you're uncomfortable, it's usually because you've opened yourself up to new experiences. And that's like when you learn things, right? For example, I learned that if you ever book a place that doesn't have a bed, you can just use the ceiling. I know. Not exactly the best night of sleep, but an interesting one. I learned that if you feed a buffalo, it will remember, and later on it will try and join you for dinner. And that you can protect yourself from the buffalo with bar stools, because apparently buffaloes... I don't see anyone writing this down. These are important tips, everyone. I learned about being a Native American, and that fighting off sub-zero temperatures and droughts and being shot at by European settlers must have been far easier than trying to sleep in a teepee. I learned that on the island of Chungchow, they have the Bun Festival. They build this huge tower, and they cover it with steamed buns, and people race up the tower and try and grab as many steamed buns as they can. And which is strange, but what's even stranger is before that, they actually take live children and place them on stakes and parade them around the island, which like a couple of years ago I would have found was appalling. Now I'm the father of a teenager, and I think, get on a stick, should have thought of it. But here's the thing about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. You kind of build up a bit of a resistance, right? It kind of takes more and more to really kind of feel satisfied. It's like pizza, I think, in that way. And so eventually you get to stage 3, which is enthusiastic discomfort. It's when you're kind of looking forward to it, when you don't feel right unless you're really kind of pushing boundaries, and it takes more and more of a discomforting situation to really kind of feel that rush. After 59 different places in just the first year in Hong Kong, I thought, God, you know, I can't possibly be uncomfortable anymore. And then I got to stay number 60. This is Sea Ranch. It looks nice, right? Beautiful white villas. You can see it from like a mile off the coast. Glistening beaches. The only way to get there is actually by a ferry, a tiny Cantonese ferry, but a ferry nonetheless. And Sea Ranch was actually created in the 1970s as an executive retreat, and it had everything an executive would want: the shag carpeting, the leopard skin prints. You see people making deals, always very important in Hong Kong. You can also stay at an Airbnb in Sea Ranch. But just so you know, before you go, all the people that you see in this picture are now dead. I know that for a fact, because now Sea Ranch is abandoned. It looks like a post-apocalyptic nightmare, as one publication calls it. The weeds have taken over all the signage. Even the clubhouse is now being reclaimed by the land once again. And as I'm sailing there on this ferry, and I am the only person on the ferry besides the crew, and it's starting to get dark. You see that picture on the bottom right? That's how Sea Ranch looks as I approached. No lights, no nothing. And part of me was just like scared and nervous, and the other part of me couldn't have been happier if there were cockroaches on my head. It was really awesome. An uncomfortable project like this should be supported by uncomfortable media appearances, and mine have included being on the BBC and blinking far too often. I talked to the South China Morning Post and happened to refer to myself as a big fat American, which of course became their headline. There's a lot of different ways that you can make yourself uncomfortable. For me, I always think the most powerful one is simply to go somewhere new. And I believe that because I think the better you know a place, the less you notice about it. You know, I think as we go through life, we start to build up this tunnel vision, and we start to only see the things we're looking for, the things we like, etc. And if you go somewhere new, you kind of break that. You restore that peripheral vision, and you kind of feel alive again, you know? And I can't tell you how to live your lives, but I can totally try. So if you ever get a chance to stay with an Airbnb host who looks like she wants to stab you with a spork, book it. If you find a place where the directions to the apartment looks like a treasure map from a Captain Crunch box, book it. If you see a chandelier in a closet, if you see that your entire apartment is just a hole in the wall, you should totally book it. If you are going to maybe hit your head a lot, book it. If maybe there's a chance that you'll be attacked by wild monkeys, book it. If your bedroom is going to double as the dining room of a pop-up restaurant, book it. If the artwork on the wall consists of Post-it notes and naked women sitting on braised ducks, stop judging and start booking, seriously. If you get a chance to stay on a 60-foot yacht, well, all right, well, that's an easy one. You should book it. But when you go, don't take your daughter, because she will ruin every picture that you try and take. Again, kid on a stick. Should have thought of it. Look, the theme of tonight is wildest dreams, and it's my belief that if you get comfortable being uncomfortable, no dream is too wild to achieve. And so make yourself uncomfortable every single day, because once you get through an uncomfortable situation, you're never quite the same. And isn't that what makes life fun? That's not a rhetorical question. I'm waiting for an answer. That's all I have for you. Thank you very much.